G'day everybody. Thanks for having me this afternoon. I'm actually just in from Sydney, so I've missed most of today's events, but Natalie said it's been a fantastic event, so congrats to those involved. What we do at Propeller is take lots of the data that's being collected by drones around in the commercial and industrial spaces and make it really easy and available online. We think that low-cost aerial imagery is going to have a huge impact on these industries, and we're already starting to see some of the enterprises adopting towards this sort of new form of data capture and analysis, but that for whatever reason it's actually not quite happening yet. I think the hardware is getting sorted, and there's a few common platforms. I spend a lot of time on the open source Pixel code that I'm sure a few of the Outback UAV Challenge people are running off. So there's the open source world and there's the sort of DJI style world, and both those sort of ecosystems of hardware are becoming relatively advanced, and we're seeing lots of our customers flying with some of the off-the-shelf kit now rather than the DIY stuff, which is interesting to see. But like I said, we're still seeing a very slow, sure but steady but slow uptake in these bigger customers. We think the two problems are that, number one, it's been really hard to turn any of this data into something that's usable. And if any of you have had any experience with the outputs that you get from a traditional UAV photogrammetry workflow, it's incredibly there's a lot of data, it's really clumsy, you need really fast computers, GIS systems, CAD applications. It is challenging, and I think one of the complaints we've had from, one of the early complaints, the customer complaints that led us down the path that we've gone down, is that these big companies were coming to us and saying, hey look, we've used drones, we really like them. The thing that we struggle with is manipulating the data. Like, what we want is the sort of API for drone data. And that's, I suppose, where we've taken our lead from. The other big thing that's overlooked is accuracy. And I think a lot of people fly with just coarse geotags on board, stitch an image together. Detail is mistaken for accuracy, and what happens when you deliver data that looks good but inaccurate is these bigger companies come back to you and say, hey look, I've got existing survey data. Unfortunately, this doesn't line up. What's going on? And it's because there's been no precise control used, and of course once that happens, these big companies recede back to their old sort of traditional surveying methodologies, and it takes another 2 years to win the trust over. So I think accuracy and ease of use are the two biggest things that haven't necessarily been ticked off yet, and that's, I suppose, what we're working on. So number one is our online software that's being used now in just over 2,000 projects around the world, in 60 countries or thereabouts. So we're building a really easy sort of online geospatial tool that gives a lot of the analysis that you typically get in your CAD or Civil 3D applications, and making just the top 10 most used features available in the browser. So we move all the data and all the analysis in the cloud, and that's really convenient for some of our customers, the ones without some of these big CAD applications, and for others, they do have particular privacy concerns, and that's a constantly evolving sort of discussion with those as well. So yeah, fundamentally it's just this really, what we like to think is an easy to use online platform, which looks a little bit like this. I would love to give it a live demo, but it's actually, anyone can jump on and sign up. There's some demo data that you can play with. So the whole thing is also 3D in the browser. It's not just a 2D map like a lot of the other companies out there. And there's an inspection product. So inspections being the other sort of key pillar of what we think drones are doing incredibly well in these commercial and industrial applications, as we saw with the previous presentation. Getting up very detailed imagery of vertical assets is something that drones are doing really well, and we've got a workflow that helps people take all their high resolution images, put them sequenced together in an easy sort of online platform, annotate, and then generate inspection reports, just all in this sort of relatively easy workflow. So the other big one is the aero points, and this is addressing that accuracy concern. So I've actually got one here. What they are is that your traditional ground control points, so your white painted cross on the ground, and instead of needing the RTK GPS unit, the rover, to capture the center of this point, it's actually got an RTK GPS unit inside it, okay? So it's very straightforward. Applies all the same sort of RTK principles that some of us probably know, so getting centimeter grade GPS information. It's solar powered, waterproof, really rugged, so it's a self-sustaining item, actually out there in the sun, I mean, it's fantastic that when it's being used, you know, it's daylight, your drone can take photos. By definition, there's sun, or at least visible light that it can charge itself off. And there's a big battery in there as well for when it gets cloudy. So yeah, super simple. Our first run is actually fully sold out, but the guys at Position Partners who are here today are going to be moving those units around Australia. And I think that's a really important sort of part of the puzzle. What we want to do is standardize what people know and think accurate drone data is. We want, you know, the arrow points to be the way that, regardless of what drone you're using, what camera you're using, with the arrow points in the field, you know you're getting those sort of centimeter grade positions, and that data set after data set after data set will line up vertically. And that's the big sort of challenge, getting that consistency right, because what we're starting to see with the online platform is people, you know, reforming the way they do their work in these industries. So some of our landfill customers running their entire operation through monthly data that gets pumped into Propeller, and if it doesn't line up month on month, you know, there's a lot of their sort of volumetric and elevation data gets skewed. And that, yeah, so consistency is a very important piece that the arrow points do a fantastic job of solving, whether you're dealing with, you know, DJI, Canon, whatever the cameras you're using. So it's a neat solution. So as I just touched on, what happens when you bring easy to use data that's also accurate? We start seeing the actual demand for this data just increase and increase and increase. And I think that's a fantastic thing for the industry in general. That's what we all need to be working towards, because there's a, you know, huge industry now of drone operators that are flying commercially. And what we all want to do is turn those single flights into repeat work. I think that's the holy grail, but you can only do that if you're solving a really valuable problem to these bigger companies. In the quarries, we're seeing, you know, annual or biannual surveys turn into monthly, landfills quarterly to fortnightly, as it says, mines, you know, going daily, and inspections now, people are actually having the opportunity to do all the inspections that they're required to do by law. There's a lot of helicopter-style inspections that aren't even necessarily done because it's too dangerous or too hard or too expensive. So what these bigger customers actually end up loving, I think there's a lot of, you know, hype around, you know, drones being an amazing new technology to bolster these dirt-related industries. What these enterprise customers are loving from our platform is an ability to have a sort of ground truth across their organization. So no matter what site, anyone can go into Propeller and see the latest data set that they've got. They can perform simple and complex measurements, and we're starting to see, you know, site teams call each other while they're both looking at their Propeller interfaces and talking through, you know, where are we blasting to on this quarry? This whole road is too steep, and like we're gonna build a new ramp here. It's becoming used as a really visual tool to start managing sites, and that's what we want to start seeing. Again, the concept being that if we encourage people to use it, they'll ask for more, and that should, you know, continue to help the industry. So how do you get Propeller, and what's the actual product you buy? We're actually working relatively closely with DJI to put together a bundle where you can take, you know, any drone, in fact, a set of 10 of our arrow points and a year's worth of the online subscription, and that's all you need to get up and running with really accurate data that will line up over time. So we do want to do away with the inaccuracies that exist. We want to make it easy. I think, you know, the end of this week, there's the interesting deregulation happening for the small and light craft, and we want to see people flying responsibly and as per regulations still. We're actually licensed under CASA ourselves at Propeller. But yeah, we do think that without encouraging or ease of technology that comes with the rest of the drone ecosystem, that accuracy component is going to get left behind, and it's important to keep it up to date as, you know, as the pace of the rest of the industry keeps moving. So for anyone that's interested, I mean, come and grab me after this for a chat, or you can get us on email at our website. But yeah, or, you know, there's a Position Partners branch probably near you that we're working with closely to move this stuff around. Yeah, I mean, fantastic day today, so thanks everybody.